Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X. These people are well known, key figures in American history. They are found in the textbooks students read at school, and in fact, there are even days dedicated to them and their significance. But what about the other activists who did just as much, if not more, but received no recognition? There were countless activists during the major social movements in the United States, such as the Civil Rights Movement and the Women's Rights Movement, but were not credited for their work and devotion to strive for racial and gender equality. Anna Pauli Murray, was one of them. She was the woman who history had forgotten. Murray was born in Baltimore, Maryland on November 20th, 1910. 4 years following her birth, Pauli's mother, Agnes Murray, died due to a cerebral hemorrhage. Pauli's father, William Murray, a high school teacher who studied and graduated from Howard University in Washington, D.C., died less than 10 years after his wife's death. He suffered from typhoid fever, and in 1923, he was murdered by a guard at the Crownsville State Hospital, which was an institution for mentally insane African Americans. Due to the death of both of her parents, Pauli was raised by her aunt Pauline Fitzgerald and her grandparents Robert and Cornelia Fitzgerald in Durham, North Carolina. In 1926, Pauli graduated from Hillside High School at the top of her class and with a certificate of distinction. After graduating from high school, Murray moved to New York and attended Hunter College. To support herself and her education, she juggled different jobs. However, following the Wall Street crash in 1929, which ultimately led to the economic panic known as the Great Depression, Murray was unable to find work, causing her to completely abandon her studies. During the 1930s, Murray worked for the Works Projects Administration, or WPA, and the Workers' Defense League, and was a teacher at the New York City Remedial Reading Project. In 1941, Murray entered Howard Law School, where she faced gender discrimination from both the school faculty and the students, and she graduated in 1944 at the top of her class and as the only female. She studied there in hopes of becoming a civil rights lawyer. After studying there, she wanted to further her education. Murray wanted to study more at Harvard University Law School in Cambridge, Massachusetts. She applied for the Rosenwald Fellowship, and on her application, she put Harvard University as her first choice. Although Murray was awarded the Rosenwald Fellowship, and despite the fact that President Roosevelt, who was a Harvard alumni, wrote a letter to the university's president on Murray's behalf, Harvard Law School refused to accept her solely because she was female. As a result, Murray enrolled in the University of California Bolt Hall School of Law to earn her graduate degree. In 1945, Murray received a master's degree in law from the University of California, Berkeley. That same year, she passed the bar in California.
When you think of the biggest triumphs of the civil rights movement, events like the Montgomery bus boycott and Brown versus Board of Education often come to mind, as well as images of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Little do people know that many of these events can all be traced back to the actions of one woman, Pauli Murray. Despite history failing to credit many of Murray's efforts, the effect they had on American society was profound and could never be forgotten. Murray was a forerunner for African Americans in many senses that have not been recognized. Rosa Parks has always been dubbed as the one who challenged the segregated busing system of the South, yet many people do not know that it was actually Pauli Murray, 15 years before Parks, who worked up the courage to make a stand and bring the question of segregated busing to light. The famous court case, Brown versus Board of Education, that ended the separate but equal notion, also featured many arguments from Murray's final law school paper, which first spawned the ideas of challenging the separate part, not the equal part, in Plessy versus Ferguson's verdict. Murray also pitched in a hand with George Hauser, James Farmer, and Bayard Rustin to create CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality.
graduated from University of California Bolt Hall School of Law in 1945. Her master's thesis was titled "The Right to Equal Opportunity in Employment," which explained the effects of women being generalized in the workforce. 2 years after, in 1947, Murray was named the Woman of the Year by Mademoiselle magazine. Once the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964, Murray co-authored Jane Crow and the Law, Sex Discrimination, and Title VII, in which she draws parallels between sex-based discrimination with the Jim Crow laws. This ultimately connected her civil rights efforts with her advocating for women's rights efforts. In 1966, along with Betty Friedan and 30 others, Murray co-founded the National Organization for Women, or NOW. Murray was a good friend and faithful correspondent of First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, who did as much to encourage Murray's work as Murray heightened the First Lady's awareness of the challenges faced by working women, the poor, and communities of color.
Murray enrolled in Howard University's law school to become a civil rights lawyer. After graduating from Howard, she got her law degree from University of California Bolt Hall School, despite Harvard Law School rejecting her because of her gender. She also spent time in private practice before pursuing a doctorate in law at Yale University in 1960s. From 1968 to 1973, Murray earned a position as professor of law and politics at Brandeis University. Other than her work in the law field, she also had numerous written works published, as she was an author. One of her most well-known books is called Proud Shoes, The Story of an American Family, which was a biography of her grandparents' struggles through racial prejudice, published in 1956. She also wrote an autobiography called Song in a Weary Throat, An American Pilgrimage, which was republished after her death as Pauli Murray, the autobiography of a Black activist, feminist, lawyer, priest, and poet. At age 62, Murray entered General Theological Seminary prior to the Episcopal Church's approval of women as candidates for ordination in 1973. In 1977, she became the first African American to become an Episcopal priest. However, in 1982, Murray was forced to retire because Episcopal Church law required retirement at age 72, and continued to serve as a priest for the hospitalized and homebound people in Alexandria, Virginia. She was also a priest at Church of the Holy Nativity in Baltimore.
Murray played a significant role in society during her life. She ultimately devoted her life to gaining gender and racial equality. Although Murray is not as well known as other activists during her time, her actions had no less of an impact than those of more renowned civil rights activists. Altogether, Murray deserves her well-awarded respect.